So undoubtedly the worst GM and head coach combination in Montreal Canadiens history was Mario Tremblay as head coach and Rejean Houle as GM. Rejean Houle had as much intelligence to be a GM as I would have to be a topless dancer in Vegas in circa 1961. Now, Rejean Houle, although he was a really good player, what he did in the Patrick Roy deal to unload number of Stanley Cups 2 years after he won the Stanley Cup is a total and utter disgrace. Tremblay kept him in the game against Detroit, giving up 8 or 9 goals, and asked for a trade, and next is history. So we're not going to be talking about that because the drama behind that could last years and years and years. But he was a number 1 overall pick in the NHL draft, taken by Montreal OHA in the 1969 NHL Amateur Draft. Ironically, he got his big start as a right winger with Thetford Mines of the QJHL with 60 points in 43 games in 1967. 2 years in the OHA with Montreal. Took a lot of penalties his first season. He had 65 points in 45 games, 27 counters. But the overall season 69 led to the number 1 draft pick as the left-handed shot won the Tilson Trophy in 69 and the Memorial Cup with a strong performance, 53 goals and 55 assists in 108 regular season games. Now, he played with Montreal from 69 to 73 and 76 to 83, and of course was in the playoffs every year he played in the NHL and the WHA. Now, ironically, his first contract came in 1969, long before he jumped to WHA. First contest was a road match against St. Louis in 69. His final NHL game was the third game of the sweep loss against Buffalo in 1983. Now, he eventually retired in fall of that year. Won 5 Stanley Cups in Montreal, 71, 73, 77, 78, 79, and was not part of the AFCO Cup Championship in Quebec in 77. Now, noted for his number 15. At times, he also played the left wing. Now, he also played in the 67 Memorial Cup tournament with Thetford Mines Canadien at age 17. He had an outstanding final junior season on a prolific scoring line with Marc Tardiff, his future teammate in Montreal and Quebec, and the great Gilbert Perreault for the Montreal Junior Habs in 69 season. He was OHA MVP that year and also was the Eddie Powers Memorial Trophy as OHA leading scorer with 108 points, and also the Matt Kaminsky Award as the OHA's most gentlemanly player. He was also a first-team All-Star. Now, in his career, he played all 3 forward positions throughout his pro career, but was primarily used at the right wing. Unfortunately, when he got older, he would show a burst of speed, miss his play, and hit the back of the boards behind the net. Now, he also played in the 1970 Montreal Voyageurs team that won the AHL regular season title. Now, he scored Montreal's first goal against the Vancouver Canucks franchise on October 31st, 1970 at the Forum. The goal against Charlie Hodge was also the first of his NHL career. Now, he was the shadow of Bobby Hull in the 71 series and kind of did the same thing with Chicago for Dennis Hull and everybody else in 73. He also represented the Quebec in the WHA All-Star contests in 74, 75, and 76. He was also named MVP of the 75 WHA All-Star contests at Edmonton with 2 goals and 2 helpers for the league's East All-Stars, who fell 6-4 to the West. He also represented Canada as one of the WHA All-Stars, also with Marc Tardiff, who faced the Soviet Union in the 74 Summit Series as the only one game in 8 matches. Lost most of their games in Russia. Now, his big season, of course, was his 51 counters for Quebec in 76 before the jump back to the NHL. He also tied for the WHA postseason goal-scoring lead with 10 counters for Quebec in 76. Now, he served as Quebec player representative during his years with the Nordiques. He was NHL Player of the Week in February 1978 after scoring 5 counters and adding 2 assists and 3 wins over St. Louis, Washington, Colorado. Now, undoubtedly, he did better against the overmatched teams, but he was mostly used as defensive against the top echelon like Philadelphia, Boston, Rangers, and Islanders. He also scored a hat trick on February 17 at Washington. During this time, the Canadiens extended an unbeaten streak to an NHL record of 26 consecutive games. He was also given a lifetime appointment in 2005 as an official ambassador for the Canadian organization. Now, when he jumped to WHA, July 20th, 73, he signed his WHA contract with Quebec. When he jumped back to the NHL, he signed a 3-year deal to rejoin Montreal after his WHA contract had expired. Now, some really bad injuries during his career, we'll go over it here. He missed part of the 70 season with a fractured ankle. He also suffered a broken toe in 75 and also a separated shoulder in 77. He missed part of the 79 season with strained groin. Then he had a broken jaw in 1980, suffered a contest against Colorado. He also had a bad broken collarbone in the 82 season, which caused him to miss half the campaign, and this injury was suffered during the Habs November 2nd, 81 contest at Quebec. Now, he hurt his foot again in 83 and lost a lot of games. Now, a big part of Houle's career, he made major headlines in July 73 when he left Montreal to sign a 3-year deal, quoted to be close to $1 million with the Nordiques. He was picked by Quebec in the 72 general player draft, and he talked about going to WHA as much as a year earlier. Nordiques GM Jacques Plante had tried to lure Houle throughout the 73 season, and within a week of signing Houle, had publicly claimed the team made its final offer. The deal, which roughly took 2 months to negotiate for Plante and Houle's agent, Gabriel Laplante, no relation by the way, reportedly paid Houle between $100,000 and $110,000 per season, but there was talk is with incentives was more like $200,000. This was a big raise over his NHL salary. He was coming off a strong performance in a defensive role to help the Canadiens win the 73 Stanley Cup, but he said he took the Quebec offer in part because the team offered him a scoring role. In going to WHA, Houle followed the footsteps of a friend and longtime teammate Marc Tardiff, who left the Habs for the LA Sharks just a few weeks earlier in Quebec. Houle was reunited with 2 former Canadiens teammates in J.C. Tremblay and a very underrated Dale Hogeson, as well as goaltender Michael DeWeese, who had been playing in Montreal's farm system. 3 years later, when his contract with Quebec was due to expire, Houle and Laplante approached Canadiens GM Sam Pollock about returning to the team. He was unhappy about the offer he was getting from Quebec, and it didn't take him long for him to get a better 3-year deal with Montreal. Now, ironically, the Nordiques in 77 won the Avco Cup, and I think were better without Houle in the lineup because he gave more role to Tardiff. Now, he was eventually in Montreal VP, hockey, and general manager on October 21st, 95, and remained that position until November 20th, 2000, of course. Worst GM in Montreal history. Let's not even get into it. Now, he was drafted by the Nordiques in 72. Now, he retired saying his only regret was not being the offensive force in NHL. He had been a junior to WHA. Now, he also served as GM of Montreal's Megastars team at the 2003 Heritage Classic in Edmonton. Now, the stints with the Nordiques, again, started the GM, this is a role, this is what happened. After retiring as a player, he became the Molson executive, one of Canada's largest breweries, and the then owner of the Habs organization. A disastrous start to the 96 season resulted in general manager Sir Savard's termination, and the team saw Houle, with his business background and history with the team, as the most viable replacement candidate. When he then served as GM to Canadiens from 95 to 2000, his tenure was largely viewed as a disaster by many fans. He initiated the infamous trade at WHA and Mike Keane to the Avalanche in exchange for Justin Thibault, Mark Rosinski, and Andrei Kovalenko just 6 weeks into the job. Following the trade, he not only dealt away key players, it was marquee players including Mark Recchi, Vincent Damphus, and Pierre Turgeon in exchange for players of little value for the squad. He was also criticized for frequently trading with non-contending teams, being unable to land widely covered free agents, and for signing marginal players to inflated contracts. Now, Houle's drafting was considered even worse. However, he was criticized for selecting players like such. And if you can remember these players, are better than me. Matt Higgins, Jason Ward, Eric Chouinard, and Marcel Hossa, the younger brother of the then rising talent of Marian Hossa, with first-round selections. Houle was fired from his post 2 months into the 2001 season, 5 years too late. Now, Houle and his wife, Micheline, have 3 children, 2 sons, Jean-François, who was the head coach of NCAA's Clarkson University Golden Knights, and Sylvain, as well as a daughter, Annie. Now, regular season and playoffs, and this is where it gets quite interesting. His Memorial Cup numbers were quite strong. He had 30 points in 67 for Tetburn Mines, one of the most underrated QJHL teams of all time. Memorial Cup in 69, he had 8 points in 8 games. Now, Voyageurs in 1970, 9 goals, 60 assists for 25 points. Now, 71, 72, and 73 in the defensive role, only had 10, 11, and 13 counters. He played 86 games in 1971 on a Stanley Cup winning team, only had 26 points and 12 goals. So, But the Nordiques, that's when he opened out in these 3 seasons. He had 62 points in 74, 27 counters, 75, a big 40 goals, 92 points, 10 goals in the postseason. And of course, in 76, again, the pre-AFCO Cup Nordiques, 81 games, 103 points. Now, when he came back to Montreal, his goal numbers did pick up. 77, he had 22 counters. 78, he broke 30. 79, he had 17. 1980, he had 18. 81, he had 27. 82, he had 11 counters. And only 5 points in an injury-related 83 season. Now, NHL, 408 points, 161 goals, 635 games, 48 points in the playoffs and 90 goals, half a point average, not too bad. WHA, more than a point a game average, 118 goals, and in the postseason, 18 points in 20 games. Now, internationally, he played for Team Canada 74 with a goal and assist in seven games. Now, ironically, that team, ladies and gentlemen, had a whole bunch of former NHLers and different key players. Now, ironically, ladies and gentlemen, it featured a lot of former Montreal Canadiens. Ralph Backstrom was on the team as well. J.C. Tremblay, Marc Tardiff, and Rejean, and of course other key players. So the idea, ladies and gentlemen, Rejean Houle, it's not his fault. He was, like I said, he's not really talked about that positively in Ken Dryden's The Game, and all I can say is that right place, right time. But Rejean Houle, for a third-line player to become general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, working with Molson, and to make so many bad trades, and basically all the years that Montreal didn't make the playoffs after that are his fault. He's probably the worst executive in Montreal Canadiens history, and that's saying a lot, because if you would have made Al McNeil general manager, that would have been even worse. But my respect for Rejean Houle, I have to respect him because he's won a lot of cups and he's done a lot in his career. But as an executive, I have as much right to be GM in the Montreal Canadiens as he is, because he was mostly a fan of Montreal. He wasn't a pure Montreal Canadian. When you think Montreal Canadiens with 5 cups, he's never going to get into Hall of Fame anywhere, because, it's like the lights are on and nobody home. To have Montreal's pocket picked by so many times with a number of draft picks, and Patrick Roy, holy frig, ladies and gentlemen. That led to Ray Bourque's trade to Colorado as well. The Quebec Nordiques, if you really wanted to help the Quebec Nordiques, you should have traded Patrick Roy to the Nordiques before the Nordiques had folded to Colorado, if you really wanted to help out. But ladies and gentlemen, like I said, some of these decisions are just completely bizarre. So we're trying to keep it to the player, but like I said, I'm starting to get a headache because I hear Rejean Houle and I'm going saying, Ronald Corey behind the bench and Patrick going over and said it's my last game in Montreal. I think he said it in French so everybody could hear it. So ladies and gentlemen, that's the story of Rejean Houle, the most controversial executive in Canadian NHL history. If you like what you're doing here with our Montreal Canadiens recaps, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share.